From age 4 to 19, I was blessed to have a friend and mentor in my life who was blind. Rose was an older woman, and we had a beautiful friendship. It was very powerful. I was 4 years old and I was looking out of my window. There she was looking out of her window. She was my neighbor. I was enamored by her. I didn't know what blindness was, but just the figure of her and the way she would stand, I was just enamored by her. And I didn't know she was enamored by me as well. She would say to my parents, later on in life I heard, she would say to my parents, how could a child of 3 or 4 ask the questions that he's asking? So there was a mutual, magnetic desire for each of us to kind of want to know each other a little bit better, obviously. And there I was, looking out. It was a beautiful spring day. She was just staring out into space. And I remember looking at her and thinking, how can I be friends with her? How can I be friends with her? And I remember looking down the hall and seeing my mother and thinking, oh wait, Mom and Dad are married and somehow I'm connected with them. So if our fans got married, Rose and I would be friends. It took all the courage in the world, and I asked, do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? And she looked over at me and she smiled and said, I have a girlfriend. And I got very excited and I yelled, I have a boyfriend. And at that moment, my mother came into the room and said, Paul, leave the lady alone. I started to clam up, and within a moment, Rose yelled at my mother in a very admonishing tone. And she said, no, you let that boy talk to me. My mother just left the room. Next thing you know, I was in Rose's apartment. She was reading Braille. And I can't describe what that looked like to me, but it was just the energy about this person. It was this powerful vision for me to see this person so peaceful in such a place. And I was a pest. I was 4 years old. What are you doing? What are you doing? She said, I'll show you, Paul. And I still remember the feeling of her hand sliding in my armpits and picking me up and putting me in her easy chair and giving me a stylus, like a punch, with which to press through a template bar, which embossed the dots into the paper. And what could I write? I was 4 years old, so I wrote my name. And it was such a visceral, vivid memory that I still remember confusing the P with the R. That's how vivid the memory was. So it was like, because they look the same. And today, if we sat with a blind person, or if I sat with a blind person, my left brain would probably be like, oh, okay, I get it. I see how this works. But I was 4 years old, and with the innocence of a 4-year-old child, after making the letters that I just made, I looked up at her and basically said, well, how do I do what you were doing? And she said, I'll show you, Paul. She said, put your fingers on the letters you just made and close your eyes. And I did. You can imagine the excitement, the tingling sensations I was having just waiting for her. And she put each of her fingertips on each of my fingertips, and she moved them the way she herself would move them to perceive. And try to imagine, 4-year-old boys are very heavy-handed. She took this child to the other end of the spectrum of touch, where there was just the perception of feeling, of sensitivity. And I was very overwhelmed by this, and I went back to the house, my home, and I closed my eyes and started practicing being blind. I started to touch things, feel things with my eyes closed. We read Braille a few more times. And then my intellectual mind, even at the age of 4, understood that, okay, Rose is blind, that's why she does this. And it was enough for me to understand it. But our friendship grew. That was the seed for our friendship. And from age 4 to 19, we were very, very close. As she got older, I took her for walks. We were just the best of friends, and she was my mentor as well. She basically introduced me into the realm of touch, pure touch, where there's no visual distraction. And it opened up that part of my brain where I was able to feel without my intellect getting in the way. I was able to perceive touch without judgment, without analyzation, direct feeling. I cannot thank her enough. God brought us together. It was just one of those things. When we parted the apartment building, she moved to go into a nursing home, and within a few months I moved out of the apartment building. It was just poetic. It was graceful. And without Rose, I don't know if I would have the sensitivity that I have in my hands. Because basically I have the sensitivity of a blind person that has sight. It's very powerful.